I worked overnight security at a small apartment complex during winter break, mostly because I needed the money and no one else wanted the shift. The complex sat on the edge of town, surrounded by trees and an empty field that turned into a white void once winter settled in. When it snowed hard. The kind that swallowed sound and made even familiar places feel unfamiliar. That night, the snow had been falling since before sunset. By midnight, everything was buried. The sidewalks, the parking lot, the courtyard, just smooth white surfaces broken only by the yellow glow of the lampposts. My job was simple. Walk the property once every hour, check the entrances, watch the security monitors, and answer the intercom if anyone buzzed in late. Most nights were painfully quiet. Too quiet. Around 2:30 a.m., I was doing my routine walk when something caught my eye near the center of the courtyard. Fresh footprints. They were clear and deep, like someone had just crossed through. That wasn't strange by itself. People came home late sometimes, but what made my stomach tighten was where they were. The prints didn't lead toward any building. They started near the fence, crossed the courtyard in a straight line, and stopped dead in the middle of the snow. No turning, no scuffing, just 2 clean boot prints frozen in place. I stood there longer than I should have, shining my flashlight around, expecting to find where they continued. Maybe the snow covered them, maybe I was missing something, but there was nothing. No continuation, no return prints. It was like whoever made them had been lifted straight up into the air. I radioed it in, mostly to hear another voice, and finished my round faster than usual. When I got back inside the security office, the building felt colder, even though the heater was running. At 2:40 a.m., the intercom buzzed. The sound echoed sharply in the small office, making me jump. Nobody ever used the intercom that late. I pressed the button and asked who it was. At first, I thought it was static. Then I realized it was breathing. Slow, heavy, close to the microphone. I asked again, louder this time. No answer, just breathing. After a few seconds, it stopped, and the line went dead. I checked the camera feed for the front entrance. No one was there. Snow untouched, no footprints. I told myself it was a prank, or a glitch, or someone leaning on the button and walking away. That explanation didn't sit right, but I needed something to calm myself down. Around 4 a.m., a tenant from Building C called the emergency line. She sounded shaken, like she was trying not to cry. She said she'd heard noises in her apartment, soft footsteps, like someone walking slowly back and forth. I grabbed my jacket and went over. Her door was locked, no signs of forced entry. Inside, everything looked normal at first. Then she pointed down the hallway. There were muddy footprints on the carpet. They started at her front door, went down the hall, and stopped right in front of her bedroom closet. The closet door was closed. She swore she hadn't opened it all night. The prints were the same size and shape as the ones I'd seen in the courtyard. We didn't open the closet until maintenance arrived. When we did, it was empty. No footprints inside, no damage, just cold air spilling out like the room hadn't been heated in days. I didn't finish my shift that night. I told my supervisor everything. He listened quietly, then asked me if the print stopped in the middle of the courtyard. When I said yes, his face changed. He told me, years ago, a man froze to death on the property after getting locked out during a snowstorm. They found his body in the courtyard, right where the footprints had ended. No one ever figured out how he got there without leaving tracks. I never worked another overnight shift. The last thing I heard before I quit was that another tenant had reported muddy footprints in their hallway, this time leading from the closet to the front door. Only this time, they didn't stop. We were driving through northern Michigan in the middle of January, the kind of winter night where snow doesn't fall gently. It attacks. Thick flakes slammed into the windshield so fast the wipers struggled to keep up, thudding back and forth like they were already tired. The road ahead was nothing but darkness and swirling white, our headlights carving a narrow tunnel through it. Jake was driving. I was riding shotgun, holding my phone even though the GPS had lost signal miles back. The blue dot just sat there, frozen, like it had given up on us entirely. We hadn't passed another car in almost an hour. No houses, no streetlights, just trees lining the road, their branches heavy with snow, bending inward like they were closing in. Every few minutes, the wind would shove the car sideways, forcing Jake to tighten his grip on the steering wheel. That was when the gas light came on. At first, neither of us said anything. We both saw it. That small orange glow felt way too bright in the dark. Jake checked the mileage left and muttered something under his breath. "We should have stopped earlier," I said. "Yeah," he replied, not taking his eyes off the road. "You think?" The nearest town we'd passed was already far behind us, and neither of us liked the idea of turning around in this weather. The snow was getting worse, not better. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, and the road markings disappeared under fresh layers every few minutes. Then, through the snowfall, we saw it. A gas station. It sat alone on the right side of the highway, lights glowing weakly through the storm. It didn't look welcoming. It looked stranded, like it had been forgotten out here. Only 2 pumps stood under the canopy, both dusted with snow. The building itself was small and old, windows fogged so thick you couldn't see inside clearly. Jake slowed down. "You think it's open?" he asked. "It has lights," I said, even though that didn't really mean anything. There were tire tracks in the snow, but they looked old, partially filled in, like someone had been there earlier, but not recently. Still, we didn't have much choice. We pulled in. The moment we stepped out of the car, the cold hit us hard, biting straight through our jackets. The wind howled across the empty lot, carrying snow sideways. I remember thinking how quiet everything felt despite the storm. No distant traffic, no movement, just us and the sound of the wind. When we pushed the door open, a bell rang overhead, sharp and sudden. Warm air rushed out to meet us, fogging my glasses instantly. The smell inside was strong: burnt coffee, old oil, and something else I couldn't place. Something stale, like the air hadn't been changed in a long time. The station was silent. No music, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerators and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Shelves were stocked, but unevenly, like someone hadn't bothered to straighten them in. Years. "Hello?" Jake called. No answer. That's when I noticed the hallway. It was at the back of the station, leading to the restrooms. The light back there was dimmer, yellowed, like an old bulb struggling to stay on. The walls were scuffed, paint peeling in long strips. Standing near the entrance to that hallway was a man. He was facing the wall. At first, I thought he might be drunk or sick or just leaning against it. But he wasn't leaning. He stood perfectly upright, hands at his sides, boots planted flat on the tile floor. He wore a heavy winter coat, thick and dark, dusted with snow on the shoulders and sleeves. Snow. Inside. I watched him for a few seconds, waiting for some sign of movement, a shift of weight, a turn of the head, anything. He didn't move. Jake noticed him too. I could tell by the way his voice dropped when he whispered, "Is that guy, okay?" "I don't know," I said. Something about the way the man stood made my skin crawl. He was too still. Even statues feel different than that. It was like he wasn't just standing there, he was fixed in place. Before either of us could say anything else, a door behind the counter opened and the cashier stepped out. She looked tired, not just end-of-shift tired, but exhausted in a deeper way. Her hair was pulled back messily, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw us, relief flickered across her face until she followed our gaze toward the hallway. She froze. Her eyes snapped back to us, wide and alert. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't what?" I asked. "Don't look at him," she replied. Her voice wasn't angry or annoyed, it was afraid. She moved quickly behind the counter and started ringing up the drinks Jake had grabbed, even though we hadn't set them down yet. Her hands shook as she typed, fingers tapping the keys too hard. The man still hadn't moved. "Is he?" Jake started. "No," the cashier cut in sharply, then softer. "Just pay and go, please." Jake didn't argue, neither did I. He handed over his card and she slid the receipt toward him without making eye contact. As she did, she leaned forward just enough to whisper, "Get back on the road. Don't stop until you see lights again." The bell rang again as we pushed the door open. Cold air slammed into us, and for a split second, I heard something behind us. A soft sound, like fabric dragging slowly across tile. I didn't turn around. We got back in the car fast. Jake started the engine and pulled out without even checking the mirrors. I looked back as we drove away, curiosity getting the better of me. Through the window, I could see the back of the station. The hallway was empty. The man was gone. Jake didn't say anything. The road swallowed us again, snow pounding the windshield harder than before. My heart was racing, and I kept replaying the image of that man in my head, how still he was, how cold he looked. After a few minutes, Jake finally spoke. "Did you open the back window?" he asked. "No," I said immediately. The rear window was fogging up, not evenly like normal condensation. It appeared in patches, blooming suddenly, like breath pressed against cold glass. The temperature inside the car dropped, and I felt a chill crawl up my arms. Then, frost began to spread. Thin white lines crept outward across the glass, branching like veins. I stared, frozen, as the frost thickened. A handprint appeared, pressed from the inside. It was perfect. 5 fingers, palm flat, pale against the frost like it had sucked the heat straight out of the glass. Jake yelled and slammed the accelerator. The car lurched forward, tires slipping for a terrifying second before catching. The road blurred as we sped through the storm. I twisted around in my seat, heart hammering. The back seat was empty. No one. Nothing. The handprint vanished almost instantly. The frost melted away, the glass clearing like it had never happened. The temperature returned to normal. Neither of us spoke for the rest of the drive. Eventually, distant headlights appeared through the snow. We reached a rest stop filled with cars, people coming and going, lights spilling everywhere. Only then did I realize how tense my body had been. We sat there for a long time before getting out. Later, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the gas station online. It still existed, but the photos were old, smaller, darker. Buried in the reviews was one comment that stuck with me. "Bathroom hallway is cursed. Don't stop here late at night." Another mentioned a man who froze to death inside the building during a power outage years ago. They found him standing near the restroom wall, facing it. My grandmother's house sat alone at the edge of a frozen lake, far enough from town that winter always felt heavier there. Snow piled higher, nights stretched longer, and the silence felt deeper, like it had weight to it. I stayed there one winter while my parents were away, figuring it would be quiet and boring. It wasn't. The house was old, built decades before anyone cared about insulation. The wind found its way through every crack, making the walls groan and the windows rattle at night. During the day, the lake looked peaceful, flat, white, and endless. At night, it felt like something else entirely. The first night I noticed it, I was lying awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling while the wind howled outside. That was when I heard footsteps, crunching, slow and deliberate, like someone walking carefully through deep snow. I sat up and listened. The sound came from outside my window, moving parallel to the house, not rushing, not stumbling, just steady crunch, crunch, crunch. I pulled the curtain back just enough to look out. The moon was bright enough to light the lake, reflecting off the ice in a dull glow. Near the shoreline, I saw a figure standing still, facing the house. He was too far away to make out details, just a dark shape against the snow. He didn't move. I watched for several minutes, expecting him to walk away or wave or do something that made sense. He didn't. Eventually, the cold crept into my fingers, and I convinced myself it was just someone passing by on the lake. I went back to bed. The next morning, I remembered it clearly. Too clearly. I walked down to the lake after breakfast, following the path I'd seen the figure standing on. There were footprints. They led from the far edge of the lake straight toward the house, stopping several feet from the shoreline. No return prints, no wandering, just a straight line that ended. The ice beneath them was solid. No cracks, no signs of breaking through. When I asked my grandmother about it, she didn't answer right away. She stared out the window toward the lake, hands tight around her coffee mug. "People shouldn't be out there after dark," she said finally. That was all. The second night, I heard the footsteps again. This time, they were closer. I lay perfectly still, heart pounding, listening as the crunching stopped directly beneath my window. I held my breath, waiting to hear footsteps retreat. Instead, I heard something else. Scraping. Slow, dragging sounds against the side of the house, like someone brushing gloved hands along the siding as they walked. I didn't look. The sound moved away eventually, disappearing around the corner of the house. I didn't sleep at all that night. The third night was when things changed. I woke up to a different sound, a dull, hollow thud, then another, then another. Something was hitting the roof, not hard, not fast, just steady, measured. I sat up, listening as the sound moved across the roof, stopping directly above my room. Snow slid down past the window in soft sheets. Then I heard footsteps on the roof. They moved slowly, each step accompanied by a faint creak, like the weight was testing where to land. I pressed my hand over my mouth, terrified the sound of my breathing would give me away. The footsteps stopped, directly above me. I don't know how long I lay there before they moved again, retreating toward the back of the house. When morning came, I found footprints on the roof. They led from the lake-facing side of the house to the chimney. They didn't lead away. I confronted my grandmother then, told her everything. She listened, eyes fixed on the floor, and when I finished, she nodded like she'd been expecting it. She told me about the winter her brother died. Decades ago, before I was born, he'd gone out onto the lake during a storm. People said he was trying to cross it before the ice fully formed. The snow came down fast, visibility dropped, and he disappeared. They never found his body. Every winter after that, someone would see footprints on the lake, sometimes leading toward the house, sometimes stopping halfway across the ice. She said the lake doesn't always give people back. That night, the footsteps came again. But this time, they didn't stop outside. I heard the back door handle rattle softly, not violently, just enough to test it. Then the side door, then the front. Each handle once, like something checking to see if any of them were unlocked. I stayed frozen in bed, barely breathing. Then I heard the attic ladder creak, slowly lowering. I didn't stay there after that night. Years later, my grandmother passed away, and the house was sold. The new owners tore it down to build something modern. They said the foundation was unstable, that the ground near the lake wasn't safe anymore. The lake is still there. Every winter when the ice freezes solid and the snow falls just right, people still report footprints leading toward where the house used to be. They still stop short. I was working night shift plowing snow for the city the winter it happened. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and I liked being alone. Most nights it was just me, my truck, and empty roads buried under fresh snow. When a storm hit, the world shrank. Everything outside the headlights disappeared. That night, the storm came in fast. By midnight, visibility was already bad. Thick snow fell diagonally, driven by strong wind, sticking to the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. The radio crackled constantly with updates and route changes, but I barely listened. I'd driven these roads for years. I knew them better than most people knew their own neighborhoods. Around 3:30 a.m., I was assigned to clear a long rural stretch just outside town. No houses, no streetlights, just road, trees, and fields completely swallowed by white. The temperature had dropped sharply. I could feel it even inside the truck. As I rounded a slow curve, something ahead caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a snowbank shifting in the wind. Then, the shape moved. A person, standing on the shoulder of the road. I slowed immediately, heart jumping into my throat. It was rare to see anyone out there during a storm like this. As I got closer, I saw it was a woman. She stood facing the road, one arm raised slightly, like she was trying to flag me down. She wasn't dressed for the weather. She wore a thin coat not nearly thick enough, and no hat. Snow clung to her shoulders and hair. Her posture was stiff, almost rigid, like she'd been standing there for a long time. I rolled down my window a few inches. "Hey!" I shouted over the wind. "Are you okay?" She turned her head slowly toward me. Her face was pale, not just cold pale, almost gray, like all the color had drained out of it. Her lips were slightly blue. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear, cutting straight through the storm. She said my name. I froze. I hadn't told her who I was. The truck didn't have my name on it. I didn't recognize her at all. "How do you know me?" I asked. She took a small step toward the truck. Snow crunched softly under her boots. "You're late," she said. Something about the way she said it made my stomach drop. Not angry, not scared, just certain. Every instinct I had screamed at me to leave. I rolled the window up and pulled away. In the side mirror, I saw her standing exactly where I'd left her, arms still raised. She didn't chase me, she didn't move. I told myself it was adrenaline, stress, a long shift messing with my head. 10 minutes later, I checked my dash cam. The footage showed my truck slowing down on an empty road. No woman, no movement, just blowing snow and my headlights illuminating nothing at all. I reported it when I got back to the depot. The supervisor looked uneasy but told me to write it up anyway. He didn't laugh. He didn't question me. That bothered me more than anything. The next day, I asked around. An older guy pulled me aside and asked where I'd seen her. When I told him, his face tightened. "Don't stop there again," he said. "Ever." He told me years ago a woman froze to death on that stretch of road after her car broke down during a storm. She tried to flag someone down. Nobody stopped. By the time they found her, she was still standing. They said she'd frozen that way. I didn't want to believe him. 2 nights later, I was assigned the same route. I considered calling in sick. The storm that night was worse. Wind howled hard enough to rock the truck. Snow reduced visibility to almost zero. I gripped the steering wheel tight, eyes straining to see anything beyond the plow blade. As I approached the same curve, my heart started racing. She was there again. Same spot, same posture, same thin coat. This time, she didn't raise her arm. She just stood there, facing me. I didn't slow down. As I passed her, I felt a sudden, intense cold wash over me, like the heater had shut off all at once. The windshield frosted at the edges, spreading inward faster than I'd ever seen. Then she was beside me. Not outside. Inside the truck. Standing in the passenger seat. I could smell cold air, not just cold like frozen metal and snow. I couldn't move. My hands locked on the wheel, eyes fixed forward. She leaned close, her face inches from mine. "You stopped last time," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to." Then she was gone. The truck lurched violently as I slammed the brakes without realizing it. I pulled over, shaking uncontrollably. The passenger seat was empty. The frost melted away. I quit the next morning. Months later, I drove that road during the day. I wanted to see it in the light, convince myself it was just another stretch of pavement. Near the curve, I noticed something new. A small wooden cross at the edge of the road, half buried in snow. No name, just a date. The winter she died.